Well, it is 4 o'clock, so it is time to call the meeting to order. We'll do that. I'd like to remind everybody, this is the opening of the Boise School District Special Board meeting. We treat everybody with respect, dignity, honesty, responsibility, and teamwork. So thank you all for being here today. Clerk Mass, could you call the roll, please?
Trustee Wagers?
Here.
Trustee Greeley?
Here.
Trustee Gregory?
Here.
Trustee Esty?
Here.
Trustee Doan?
Here.
Trustee Oppenheimer?
Here.
Trustee Langley?
Here.
All present.
Thank you all for being here today. We're going to go, I think, directly to Deputy Superintendent Roberts. She's going to give us a presentation.
There we go. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. I wish that was a little bit faster to do. Okay. I realized that we were all just together on Monday and we gave you an update, and there were portions of that update where we talked about some big concerns that we have about our operations. And so we would like to update you on where we are today. Most of our numbers are reflected from yesterday, but today it would be the same situation. Okay, so we continue to have a shortage of substitutes. We have principals covering, we have teachers covering for other teachers. We have a lot of our paras helping cover, and it's getting to a point with our fill rate that we're having a difficult time covering classrooms. Actually, we aren't covering classrooms, so that's part of the issue there. The number of students and staff who are quarantined, Nick Smith will go through those numbers with you to show you. Yesterday, when we gave an update to some of the districts around us, we had 1,500 staff and students combined that were quarantined. Because of that, it leads to really inconsistent learning for students. So because they don't have the option to be at the in-person learning, all of their learning has to be online. It's really not the best learning for those kids. And then our teaching staff, they are working their hardest, but they're doing truly 3 jobs. So they're trying to teach in person. They're trying then to make sure that they're making that engaging for their students that are on the non-in-person days. And then they're trying to provide instructional support for all the students that are not attending. So they may be not attending because parents are choosing not to send them right now. They may be not attending because they're quarantined. And that's really a difficult task for our teachers. Our health services staff, their capacity also is running incredibly low. We've had a difficult time finding nurses to hire. We have approved extra health techs to hire, but also finding a difficult time with staff there. They are trying to do their regular nursing jobs that are normally required of them in a normal school year. And then on top of that, helping with contact tracing. And that contact tracing takes hours and hours to do. We have an inability to fill vacant classified positions. As of today, we have 41 classified positions we have not been able to fill. Also, an impact on our special programs. We have some classrooms that we've had to completely quarantine because the nature of the classroom, the teachers have to be in closer contact with the students because of their needs. And we have several of those programs right now that the entire program is quarantined. We also, have been facing a shortage of bus drivers, and Durham has had to bring those folks in from out of state, and they're at a point where they would need to go and try and do that again, but that is getting more and more difficult for Durham to do. I'm going to have Director Smith go through some of the data slides with you to update you on where we're at with that.
Thank you, Deputy Superintendent Roberts. The first slide that I've got for you guys today is just the data trend of positive COVID cases and probable cases in the district. As you can see, we've had a pretty sharp increase in cases over the past 9 days. We are on track basically at this point to double our numbers from the prior reporting periods. So today, these numbers are as of this morning. They do not include the 20 positive cases and 3 probable cases that have come in today so far. So add 20 to that 110 and 3 to that 29. Next slide. This is a look at basically that same data, but broken out by elementary and secondary and excluding central office positives and probables. As you can see, again, what this data is showing, that sharp increase during this reporting period, which we run every 2 weeks, again, on track to double our numbers, probably have actually doubled our numbers if once today's data is included. And we have 5 days left in this reporting period as well. Next slide. You guys can interrupt me at any time if you have a question. Just another look at that same data, but with the percentages. Next slide. This is the number of probable cases. So the last slides were the positive cases. This is probable, but again, a fairly sharp increase, especially at the secondary level, where you can see we went from 8 in the last reporting period to 18 this period. Again, this does not include today's probable numbers. Here's the quarantine data that Deputy Superintendent Roberts talked to you a little bit about. As you can see, on November 9th, when I last presented to you on Monday, we had a total of 1,113 students and staff that were quarantined in the district on Monday. As of yesterday, we had 1,580. So we had an increase of 467 quarantines in that time frame, which is a substantial increase. At the secondary level, we were looking at approximately a 2.49% increase, and at the elementary level, a 1.33% increase in the number of quarantines from Monday. This is the data that Deputy Superintendent Roberts referenced on the substitutes, absences, and fill rates. This data has stayed fairly consistent since Monday, but we are still seeing these numbers where at the secondary level, we are averaging approximately a 65% to 63 to 65% fill rate, and at the elementary level, about a 78% fill rate. Today, those numbers, I think we were at a 63% fill rate overall across the district. And so what we're seeing is that we're, again, similar to what I shared with you on Monday, we have about the same 80 subs that are picking up jobs on a regular basis, and regardless of the number of absences that we're seeing. I know we had 22 unfilled absences in one of our high schools today, secondary, and that was classified and certified. So when we talk about a lack of continuity in our operations and the inability to effectively deliver instruction, those are the kind of absences that we're talking about impacting that ability.
Thank you, Director Smith. So we started on Tuesday looking at some different options. We started working with transportation, food service, and the Boise Education Association to recommend, to come up with a recommendation for the board. And while we know that this will not be the ideal option for everyone, we feel right now it's the best option given our circumstances. So what we are recommending now to the board is a move to 100% virtual learning from November 30th until January 15th. So that will take us from Thanksgiving break through the winter break and then extend even 1 week further. We want to continue with the hybrid in-person learning schedule until the beginning of Thanksgiving break on November 20th. This will allow families to plan for the weeks after Thanksgiving break. We know this will cause a hardship for some of our families. Teachers then can also use the next week to clarify learning expectations for virtual learning and to ensure that students and families have the needed resources. So if teachers want to send home some different materials with their students, they'll have a chance to do that. The nice thing about where we're at now compared to where we have been previously is all of our students have devices. We've handed out multiple hotspots already. And so our kids are ready to engage in virtual learning. They do that on Mondays. So that will help them transition here. I know we have numerous parents and families that all of you have heard from who would like us to actually move to virtual tomorrow if we could. And what we want to remind those parents and guardians is that they can choose to keep their students home between now and Thanksgiving break. That's always their choice if they feel that their children are unsafe. At any time they can make that choice. This plan will involve the shift of 9 in-person learning days to virtual learning days. Waiting to return to our hybrid in-person learning schedule until January 19th. That will give us 2 full weeks between New Year's Eve and the return to in-person learning. What we've learned is that our community has experienced a surge in cases the 2 weeks following holidays since last July. That was started on July 4th, and every major holiday we've had, that's happened. So we were hoping by using that week we come back from winter break as a virtual week that we can expand that window so that we can keep, case counts down coming into the school. Details of the plan. So all students will engage in learning 5 days a week virtually during this time. And what we mean by that is even our students maybe with some different special needs, English language students, some of our special education students, we feel that this is a time for the community to reset, to get the case counts down, because if we don't get the case counts down, that is exactly what affects our school operations, because then we have to quarantine families, we have to quarantine students, we have to quarantine staff. So we need to get those case counts down. All athletic, extracurricular activities, practices, workouts are suspended until we can develop a plan with the Southern Idaho Conference prior to the winter break. So we will make sure that we communicate that out. That's the part of being in the conference, is that other districts are relying on our schedules as well. So we will work with them to develop a plan, but as of now, all those are suspended. Instructional staff will have the option to teach from home or school because we need our community case rates to go down. If staff want to stay home, they feel that that's a better option for them, we will allow that. At this time, of course, there's going to be staff that won't be able to stay home. And we will also work with staff in this building to develop a schedule if there's certain folks that feel like they need to stay home on it, not necessarily every day, but if there's a day that they would like to work from home, we'll work with them on that. Other staff will work with their immediate supervisors to determine if they're able to work from home. That was what I was referring to at this building. And then curbside meals will be provided again during this time because our food services supervisor, Christy Smith, is amazing and works so hard to make sure that we can feed all of our kids. We will include that over the winter break as well, because we know that's a long winter break. So that information will be coming out for families on how to access meals. The really important message in all of this is that with the high positivity rate of COVID-19 in our valley, it's directly affects our ability to maintain our school operations. In order to stay open to in-person learning, we need the community to help us by being vigilant these next few weeks so that the case counts can come down and we can resume our hybrid schedule of in-person learning. We've heard so many amazing reports from teachers and from parents about the in-person learning and how great that's going, that we know that is the most effective education for our students. And so we just are begging the community to help us with that. The other thing I did forget to mention was that the school offices will remain open if parents need anything, during those 3 weeks between Thanksgiving to Christmas, and then also that week after we come back for the winter break. At that, I will stand for questions, or any of us will stand for questions and discussion.
President Wagers.
Vice President Green.
Thank you, President Wagers. Deputy Superintendent Roberts, can I ask clarification on the athletics piece? Sorry,
Yes.
I'm trying to my screen smaller so I can see it. So you said that is that going to start on the November 30th as well? That
Starts today.
It starts today.
Yeah. So we had planned. Sorry, President Wagers, Trustee Greeley, that we had planned, to start girls basketball on Monday, and that will be suspended for the time being.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Other questions?
President Wagers,
Trustee Langley.
Deputy Superintendent Roberts, can you clarify the
how the instructional educators can work from home or not? I didn't quite understand what you were saying there.
President Wagers, Trustee Langley, absolutely. So if a teacher feels like they have the resources that they need to deliver, the education that they've been delivering from their classroom, they can, over those 4 different weeks, they can stay home and do that instruction from home. However, it's a lot of times they do rely on, maybe it's their internet, maybe it's the resources in their classroom. They can come to school if they would like to do that as well. So we're giving them the option there. We think that will also help reduce, the amount of folks that are gathered in our schools. Did that answer your question?
It did. Thank you so much.
You bet.
President Wagers.
Trustee Oppenheimer.
Thank you. Superintendent Dennis or Lisa, last time when we went all virtual, we worked really hard to make sure that there was childcare available to those families who are essential workers that need childcare. What actions have been taken either with Just for Kids or community childcare programs to help serve those needs?
President Wagers, Trustee Oppenheimer, that was another group I should have listed that we've been in communication with. I'll let Director Thamert answer that for you.
President Wagers, President Wagers, Trustee Oppenheimer. I have reached out to all of our community partners that we have for childcare, and they are also just amazing as a food service group. They have space in their programs now. They have already helped us out during a virtual learning period, and they're ready to help us out again. We have the updated information to send out to families if they need it.
Thank you, Director Thamert. Follow up, Trustee Oppenheimer.
Thank you, Director Thamert. Does that information from families also include 211 where families can call if they need childcare, and that's the resource and referral for childcare in Idaho?
President Wagers, Trustee Oppenheimer, we can absolutely include that on our documentation that we're going to send out.
Okay, thanks.
President Wagers, if I might too, the one thing I did not mention was that we will once again start up our SAFE hotline also during this time.
Other questions, clarifications on the administration's recommendations?
President Wagers.
Trustee Oppenheimer.
Thank you. I don't know who to direct this to, either Lisa or Kobe. With what accommodations are being made for students that really need to be in school for a variety of reasons? Are you looking at special accommodations for maybe some of our special education students or something like that?
President Wagers, Trustee Oppenheimer. So at this time, we do not plan on bringing any students into the school building to attend school. But our special education staff, they will be in communication with our supervisors, with the special education staff to help them figure out accommodations and different services, that they can provide virtually during that time.
President Wagers, if I could jump in.
Superintendent Dennis.
I think it's really important, trustees, that to realize that we've done everything we can up to this point to maintain our normal operations, and unfortunately, and it makes me sad to say this, we're at a critical place right now where operationally we can't make this work anymore. And so the things that we have been able to do because we've had the people to do it, we no longer can do for a period of time. So the part of the reason for this recommendation is we need a complete, some time where everyone can get themselves healthy during this period of time. That is the critical component here. So we will do everything we can to address the special needs, those families that have special circumstances. We will do everything we can. But we really need the community to understand that this is a result of the fact that our case counts in our community are so high that it's affecting our operational abilities. It has nothing to do with whether or not it's safe or not. Our schools and our protocols do work. We've shown that over a period of time, but the case counts right now in our community are affecting our operational abilities to no end. And so, we will continue to work with those special ed folks. We'll continue to work with those ELL folks, but we really need everyone to get healthy right now. I know that we have had, and correct me if I'm wrong, Deputy Superintendent Roberts, but I believe we have at least 4 special ed programs that are completely shut down because of quarantining right now. Is that correct?
I think today it's 5 and perhaps 6.
President.
So, yeah, Trustee
Sorry.
Oppenheimer, go ahead.
Sorry. Superintendent Dennis, I appreciate what you said is that, and what CDH has told us, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that this is not necessarily a problem within our schools. This is a problem outside of our schools. And we have said over and over again and begged our community, and I think we're all kind of tired of begging our community to do what needs to be done, including parents, some teachers and others who are not doing what they need to do outside of the school walls. Have you heard anything from Central District Health in regards to what they are doing outside of the schools? Because I feel like, I think it's insane that we're having this conversation around closing our schools and putting so many children at risk of not being in our schools, but yet our restaurants are open and our bars are open and everything else. Have you heard anything from Central District Health in regards to what they're doing outside of the walls of the school to control what's happening, and who's putting pressure on them?
President Wagers, Trustee Oppenheimer, that's a really good question. And the short answer to your question is we meet with, well, it's not going to be a short answer, so let me just stop there. We meet with Central District Health at least twice a week. On Tuesday morning of this week, we had a meeting with all of the SIC superintendents and Russ Duke from Central District Health. In that meeting, Mr. Duke stated that he fully believes that our schools and the protocols that we have in place are safe as far as how we are handling the pandemic. As far as what they are doing in order, I can't really speak to them for them. I know that our bars and our restaurants and those things are continuing to stay open. And I know that they sent out a memo, I believe it was yesterday, kind of a plea to the community that we need to change our behavior if we're going to see anything different. As far as enforcement of those things, there isn't any. And I think that's really where we are right now. It's really trying to get our folks and our parents and our community members to understand it isn't just being safe at school, it's also in your personal life. That those kinds of things have to change if we're ever going to see a change in this. So I know that isn't a really good answer to your question. I know that Deputy Superintendent Roberts and I spend a great deal of time trying to visit with Central District Health to provide them the feedback as far as things that we're seeing.
Other comments, trustees? Just on the presentation at this point.
President Wagers.
Trustee Esty.
I have a question probably for Deputy Superintendent Roberts or for Superintendent Dennis. What additional steps can we take to try to identify and intervene where teachers see children in their classroom, now virtually, who are at risk, whether that's for mental health issues, for child abuse, for any of the other issues that we have concerns about when kids are in a virtual setting?
President Wagers, Trustee Esty, unfortunately, we had a lot of practice with this last spring. And so our community schools coordinators will be active and reaching out to families, talking with teachers, being there for to help with those things. Our social workers will be there as well. We will start that SAFE hotline up again so families can reach out to that. One thing that we're looking towards is, I know that our school resource officers, that they will be available too if we need to do any welfare checks for any families. They have been helping with that, earlier this school year. I think that I'm thrilled that we were able to begin some in-person learning, because that's helped teachers get to know their students, especially at the secondary level. And I think they have a much better idea and a much better understanding of the families that may need those extra resources. So we'll continue to work with that. I'm trying to think of other things off the top of my head at the moment. I know our counselors are very tuned into to what the students need as well. So I think that we'll just be continuing to reach out, talking with our principals, talking with our counselors, and relying on those social workers and community schools coordinators to help us with those things.
President Wagers, if I could tag team on that.
Absolutely. Superintendent Dennis.
Thank you. Trustee Esty, I think for just all those things that Lisa just mentioned, but also we have really good systems in place for reporting issues that teachers notice. And I think if I were to say anything, I would encourage our teachers to continue to follow through in those processes, even when they have an inkling that there might be something going on, so that the system can begin to work and see what's going on in that house.
Thank you. Other questions on the presentation?
President Wagers.
Trustee Langley?
Just to confirm, Superintendent Dennis or Deputy Superintendent Roberts, it's 9 days that the students would be missing over the course of the timeout, in-person learning?
President Wagers, Trustee Langley, yes. So they'll miss a total of 9 in-person days during for the period that we are recommending. And while I'm speaking, I did want to add quickly, I have heard Central District Health advocate in our local calls with Ada County officials asking for, more measures to be put in place. I know that they don't have any enforcement ability, and that's a difficult and frustrating thing for them as well.
Any other questions? I might have one for Superintendent Dennis. So I know, I think the governor is speaking tomorrow. And I'm not sure what will be happening there, if anything. I guess I'm not quite always clear. I mean, we have a citywide mask mandate going on currently in Boise, and yet still we're having, it's not enforced is what I would say, but we do have a mandate. And I don't imagine that we're going to have an enforced mask mandate statewide anytime in the near future, because enforcement is a very difficult thing on that. How could that affect our schools? I mean, things could happen at that. I mean, do you have any anticipation of anything happening from the governor's statements that might affect our schools?
President Wagers, trustees, I don't have anything specific. I know that the governor's office has been meeting with a lot of different people over the last couple of days to talk about what it might look like going forward. What I would say about that is that the governor's office is very much aware of the issues that we are dealing with, particularly here in Boise. And in the Boise School District, we have been in communication with them all week long, as well as the state board. And in addition to that, Mayor McLean, we've been visiting with her a lot over the last couple of days, just to give them an idea of the magnitude of the problem that we're seeing. So I don't want to speak for the governor's office for tomorrow, but I will assure our board that he is paying attention and is listening to what's happening with us.
Thank you. And could you also, Superintendent Dennis, expand a little bit more on sports and what you feel like? So I know, we'll have to work with the SIC, and we're not always perfectly in sync with the SIC. I mean, we tend to be probably a little more conservative as far as our movements as most of those schools go. But how will that work I know it won't work always perfectly, but I just like your take on that as well.
President Wagers, trustees, yeah, it's a delicate situation. We obviously we're a member of a conference, and with that goes a responsibility to not only to our district but to the conference as a whole. Our decisions impact the other members of the conference, and so it becomes problematic when one member is doing something different than the other members are doing. And in this case, we would be suspending our athletic program beginning immediately. And some of those districts will be going ahead and starting practices on Monday. What I will tell you is there are concerns within the conference of the viability of whether or not we can sustain this for very much longer, irrespective of the district they represent. Without naming names, we had this conversation just last night for about 2 hours about where we were as a conference. So we're going to work closely with the SIC. I've asked John Rosiska, our district athletic director, to begin the process of talking about what it looks like for us if we have to delay athletic programming for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and they're going to start working on some contingency plans. The other thing that I would say is that we want to spend some time working with Boise State and trying to figure out if there are some protocols that we can utilize as far as testing goes to make sure that we can ensure the test that our case rates stay low enough and our kids are safe as they return. As I've said from the beginning of this, and I think as Deputy Superintendent said, we need a break. We need in order to get our staffing back to a level in which we can operate. Once that happens, then we might be able to talk about whether or not athletics can continue, but we can't do it at this stage of the game with the case rates and the infection rates they are at this moment. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, closely. So if let's say, for instance, case rates come down some, we're still out of school. I mean, if we accepted your recommendation, we'd still be out of school until January 18th. Is there a possibility that sports could come back before then if we implement testing, if we try to come up with some other protocols that could possibly work, that we feel like we could come up with an effective plan to manage that?
President Wagers, I think the short answer is possibly yes. Now, with that being said, we would have to have some assurances that that our employees that they're back to being 100%, that our kids aren't continuing to contract the COVID virus. The biggest concern that I think all of us have right now with our winter sports is, and what's different between now and where we were in the fall, is most of our fall sports are outside. Our winter sports are all inside. The other complicating factor in this is that there is a staggered season in our winter sports with girls basketball, wrestling, and then boys basketball being exactly a week apart from each other in these things. So an impact on each one of those sports has a different impact on the back end of that when state tournaments, district tournaments go on. So we're going to have to be a little flexible as it relates to how this looks. And so there is a possibility, but I would want to be assured that we have the proper protocols in place to make sure that it's safe for our kids and our staff to return.
Thank you.
And if I could just add one other thing, I think what we've asked John Rosiska to do and work with the SIC is to bring back a plan to the board during the December board meeting, which would be just before our holiday break, that would give everybody an idea as to what we would look for at that time to resume sports if we're at a point where we think it's safe to do so.
Thank you.
President Wagers.
We'll go with Trustee Greeley and then we'll go to Trustee Doan.
Thank you, President Wagers. Superintendent Dennis, with the operational strain that we've been hearing about and the rise in positive and probable cases, including today's data, are you confident that we can sustain schools staying open for the next week?
President Wagers, Trustee Greeley, that's a really good question. And I've learned during this pandemic that any prediction we make is always wrong. But I think at the stage that we are at right now, we can sustain what we have going until a week from tomorrow. We are limping through. I think Deputy Superintendent Roberts did a really good job of articulating some of the challenges we have along with Director Smith. You know, when we have 60 to 65% of our sub jobs being filled, and just to use round numbers, if we have 100 certified teachers out, that means 40 classrooms that we're trying to cover in any one given day. That means that our principals and our classified folks are no longer doing their jobs. They are trying to cover classrooms in the building. So the short answer is yes, I think we can sustain it through next week. And I think that is a critical component to provide our families an opportunity to prepare for this. But if we aren't able to do that, then our contingency plan would probably be to shut down our secondary early to free up resources to cover some of the elementaries. That would be our contingency plan at this stage.
Thank you.
Trustee Doan?
I had two questions, but first about sports. Can you help me to understand? We talked about this is mostly a operational issue that we're for schools. How does that relate to sports then?
President Wagers, Trustee Doan, I think the issue that we're in right now is coaches are getting sick, those kinds of things, and we need a break from our sports program in order for our people to get sick, to get healthy again. Once we've done that, do I think that we have an opportunity to possibly bring back our sports program? Yes. But we need, what I think we have seen, particularly over the last couple of weeks, is the impact that our sports program is having on some of the spread in this. Without going into too much detail, I know of at least a couple of coaches within the last week that have gotten COVID that caused some significant issues within our program. So I think that's the issue, is we need a break. We need to stop, and then we need to see what that looks like once we've had an opportunity to get everybody healthy.
Follow up, Trustee Doan?
It might be kind of the same thing, but I want you to address it a little bit too. If it's an operational issue, why couldn't we do it school by school rather than the entire district? Is that a possibility?
President Wagers, Trustee Doan, I assume you're talking about the entire district, not just sports. Okay.
Correct. Sorry, I'm back to learning and
yeah.
Wondering if you could do it school by school rather than just or building by building rather than the entire district. Would that be a possibility with the operations?
President Wagers, Trustee Doan, the short answer is we don't believe so at this stage of the game. It is affecting almost every one of our buildings, and we have plenty of buildings right now that are just barely holding on. And I think we have only one school that I am aware of that has not had operational issues as we've gone through this. So I believe that we're making the most prudent call right now, although it is extremely impactful and not something that we wanted to do in any way, shape, or form. I do not believe that we're going to be able to just do this school by school.
One more question, Trustee Doan, or was that it?
That's all. Thank you.
President Wagers.
Trustee Oppenheimer?
Thank you. Question for either Superintendent Dennis or Deputy Superintendent Roberts. So looking at, and it's kind of a follow-up to Trustee Greeley's question as well, is that operationally we have 1,500, I think is what the number that you said, that are out in quarantine, teachers, staff who are out in quarantine. If those numbers stay consistent, even in virtual, are we going to have the staff even, or the teachers even, to teach virtual? If we're having a hard time with subs in person, what happens? Like, help us understand elementary and then also secondary. What happens in the elementary if the teacher is out and we don't have anyone to fill? Do they just not have school that day? In secondary, it would be class by class. What would that look like?
So President Wagers, Trustee Oppenheimer, with the staff that are quarantined, they're quarantined because they've had an exposure. So they're not necessarily sick. As a matter of fact, I would say 90% of them are not sick. And so they're able to teach from home. That's what's so difficult about when we quarantine, is that on those in-person days, we do have to get a substitute. And that's why we're running into substitute issues. Before we brought the secondary back, we were able to maintain the substitute levels because secondary could teach from home. And so that's what's happening there. And I think that that's a difficult thing too for our families to kind of understand. They get a letter about cases. They see a ton of people out in the school and they assume they all have COVID-19, and they don't. They're quarantining. Our procedures for quarantine are we follow CDH and CDC guidelines for that. Whereas even like the hospitals, they're not as strict as we are with quarantining. So that is why we have so many out. But we feel like that's the best call to action for us, is to make sure that we're quarantining folks when they are exposed. So they should be able to teach from home. And our teachers are telling us that because so many kids are quarantined, it's really difficult right now to offer consistent instruction. So this, with at least going to 5 days, they think they'll be able to offer much more consistent instruction than what they've been able to these last 2 weeks.
President Wagers, question about that?
Trustee Greeley.
Thank you. For clarification, Deputy Superintendent Roberts, was the 1,500 staff or staff and students?
Staff and students, President Trustee Greeley, staff and students. Majority students, in that number, but a lot of staff.
Okay, thank you. Just want to double check.
And the reason that we don't separate those out is because that can be pretty identifiable. So.
Any other questions on the presentation? We will have discussion after we make a motion as well. So,
are you ready for a motion, President Wagers?
I'm always ready for a motion, Trustee Gregory.
It's been a great discussion, great Q&A. If we want to put a motion on the table and then have further discussion, I move that we accept the administrative recommendation to go virtually from November 30th to January 13th, and completing this immediate week approaching in hybrid in preparation for being 100% virtual from November 13th to January, or November 30th to January 13th.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Greeley. All right, we are open for discussion on the motion.
President Wagers, if I could jump in for a second, I want to make sure that the motion is accurate. I think we're asking for it from November 30th to January 15th, not the 13th.
15th, thank you. So amend.
Okay, so it'll be January through January 15th. Discussion on the motion.
President Wagers.
Trustee Greeley.
Thank you. I want to say one piece of this. I was really struggling today with just the thought of not having our children in school. I think it's the right thing. I think it's the best thing for our students to be in school. I think our teachers and custodians and nurses and administrators have done an amazing job of creating a safe environment, but they just can't do it alone. And I feel like as a community, we failed our students. But I do think we can turn this around. I think we have a community that really values education and values our teachers and values our students being in the classroom. And I would just, again, like Trustee Oppenheimer said earlier, we've been begging, but that is going to be the difference maker. And I just ask that our community do what's best for our students by following safety protocols.
Other commentary on the motion?
President Wagers.
Trustee Oppenheimer.
I would like to echo Trustee Greeley and say that, you know, we're past the point of begging and all of that nonsense. And I just want to say that it's incredibly unfortunate that our schools and our children, who are, you know, going to suffer the most, are put in this position. And because of the fact that people outside of our walls won't do what they're supposed to do. And I would say again to everyone listening that the actions of everyone outside of our schools is impacting what's happening in our schools. And if we want schools to open, you got to do what you have to do. And that's not a beg, that's just a statement. So, and I think it's really unfortunate that our kids are ultimately the ones who are in the situation where they are not getting the opportunities to learn inside a classroom or play sports or any of the other extracurricular activities that they want to do. And this is the impact, and we're kind of it. So I just think it's unfortunate, and I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Trustee Oppenheimer. Other comments?
President Wagers.
Trustee Gregory.
I want to acknowledge the work of our administration in, sorry, I have to close the door, in going the extra mile in doing everything they can to keep in-person school, which includes the gradual opening that we experienced with the intent of keeping kids in school. We just have reached a critical point where we're going to have to take a hiatus and see if we can't get the numbers back down again. And I realize that this has been challenging for our teachers and our support staff, but everybody has really done their very best to make school work, even in this hybrid situation. We just kind of pulled out all the stops to keep things going. And thanks to the superintendent, the deputy superintendent, and their cabinet to cover all the bases. And now when we anticipate going into virtual for this interim time, I hope that families, we can learn from our previous experience, that families can know where they can access needed resources from our community centers, from our support staff, from our lunch providers, et cetera, so that they can keep their families stable through a difficult time. And you know, one of the things that I've learned is we've gotten used to technology, we've got used to texting, looking on Facebook. We may all just need to pick up the phone and call each other, call your friends, check on your kids, check on your grandkids, check on your cousins, aunts, and uncles, and your neighbors, to just stay connected in a positive way while we need to be isolated and not gathering in large groups, which is so difficult not to do, especially in the midst of a holiday. So, you know, keep the students in mind and find creative ways to reach out, and know that this is going to be for a time period, and then we're going to be revisiting and trying to figure out what our next steps are going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Gregory. Other comments from trustees about the motion? I have a few. things that we spent a lot of time today talking about a plan, and how do we do this? How do we keep our community safe? And our focus, I think, on this board, and I know every board member feels this way. Our focus is on students and educating students, but that also means our focus is on staff, because they educate all those kids for us. And then it's on families, and then it's on our community. And we spend so much time, thinking about students, staff, community, and families. And we get lots of emails, which is great. We need the input from folks, and we encourage that. It's not always, it's not always fun, but we get lots of emails, and we will continue to get lots of emails, and that's great, because that's our job. I mean, that's what we do. But we're trying to balance this very difficult act between physical safety and mental safety of students. And mentally, we know they need to be in school, but it's not safe. And physically, they need to be out of school, but that's not safe the other way. So we're in the impossible situation. But a lot of that is what Trustee Oppenheimer and Trustee Greeley have talked about, is our community the values have decided that it's okay that, we go to a birthday party because, hey, it's only one and we know those people there. Or we go to a funeral because uncle, he died, but, it's only going to be a one-time thing. Or we go to a wedding or a Halloween party. My son got COVID at a Halloween party. Not very excited about that, but he's 23 and I really can't control what he does. But it's those little instances that are making this difference and making this peak happen step by step by step. And then that forces us to make decisions as a school district where I don't think we should be making at the level where we shouldn't be making the decisions. It should be a central district health who is responsible for community health, or at a state level. And that's just, Dave's commentary, but it forces us into the decisions where we can how do we keep our teachers safe? It's the same thing, because they are equally as important to us. So it frustrates me that we need to do what we need to do. I did have a good friend who was a teacher called me last night, and I had some of the same concerns. Okay, should we really be closing schools on Monday? I mean, is that really maybe the best answer for us? Because we're seeing the spikes, the cases are going very high. And she's a secondary teacher, and we've been friends for a long, long time. And she said, I need to connect with my kids 2 more days, each one of them. I have to prep them for 4 weeks without me. I need that time. And she said, the kids, if the families don't feel like they need to come, then I don't want them to come. But I need that extra time with those kids just to prep them for that oncoming time. And it was a very powerful phone call for me. But I don't know. I'm still not pleased that we have to make the decision, but I will support the motion. Any other commentary?
President Wagers, I'll be brief because I would probably just repeat the comments that my fellow trustees have made. But I would like to add that if we don't get this figured out as a community now, we're going to repeat this cycle over and over all through next spring. And it's not healthy for our kids at all. So we've got to do better.
Thank you, Trustee Esty. There was one other group I need to acknowledge, and that's actually families as well. We know the stress this puts on families. We're either putting kids back in the households where mom and dad work, or mom just works, or dad just works. And how do they handle that? It's very difficult. Are they professional teachers? No. We know the best place for the child is in front of the teacher. But how do we make sure that those families are taken care of? And once again, we're putting an incredible burden on our families within our community. Our job as an educational system is to educate kids and take care of those. And we have families who feel like we're not fulfilling that obligation. But we are doing that within the best of our constraints. I feel very strongly about that. But okay, probably enough of Dave talking. Any other commentary from other trustees? Otherwise, we will go to a vote. All right, we'll go ahead and do a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Are there any opposed? Motion passes. We'll go to board superintendent comments.
President Wagers.
Trustee Gregory.
I just want to take a minute to just say thank you to all the trustees who have waded through so many meetings and so much data and so many emails. We are reading all of your emails. I'll say that to the public. We are reading them, and we have connections in the community that are very similar to yours, and we know the complexity of the situation for everyone. So I would just once again say, please reach out if to your principal or to your counselor in your school if you have needs for childcare, for food, for help in a desperate mental situation, any of those situations, and academics. Reach out to your teacher if you need some help in academics, and see if we can't meet the needs of our kids while we're in a virtual setting, because resources are out there, even if it's just comfort and acknowledgement and empathy that can get us through the day-to-day situation. And thank you to my fellow trustees for working through this as a responsibility on a school board.
Thank you, Trustee Gregory.
President Wagers.
Superintendent Dennis.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Trustee Gregory just said, and thank you guys for your efforts. You guys spent a lot of time thanking us, but you guys have had some difficult decisions to make as well. So we want to acknowledge your efforts in this as well. The other thing I wanted to bring up was there's a letter that the SIC superintendents are putting together that is going to go out to our community over the next probably week or so, really talking about a lot of the very things that we discussed here, and that is the impact that this is having across all different school districts, whether they're charters, their traditional public schools, their parochial schools, that it's going to be signed by all of the superintendents. So as soon as I get a copy of that, I will send it to you prior to it going out into the public. But I wanted you to be aware that I will be signing that letter.
Thank you, Superintendent Dennis. Any other commentary from trustees or? I'm assuming we'll have a press release that goes out fairly soon that kind of overall, it gives folks an overarching view of what we've decided today.
President Wagers. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
President Wagers, we yes, we have a press release ready. We also met with our principals at 3:00 today to inform them that this recommendation would be coming. So our schools are poised and ready. And I will just add that I think our principals all shared a very similar sentiment to what all the board shared too. And that one unfortunate thing that our kids in this are the ones that, that absolutely do not win. So, but our principals are ready. They are getting good at shifting and figuring out creative. That's the other thing you need to know in the next few weeks. We're going to see amazing creative activities and solutions that our teachers are going to wow us with, because that's what they do. When they find themselves in a difficult situation, they find amazing ways to let their instructional skills shine and to highlight their kids.
Thank you, Deputy Superintendent Dennis Roberts. I've always said hire great people and then get out of their way. So I think the Boise School District has done a great job of that. So hearing no other comments or comments, I will like to remind everybody what we're really here for today is educating today for a better tomorrow. And we're giving it our best. So everybody have a great day. Thank you.
To adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn by Trustee Doan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Trustee Greeley. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Have a good day, everybody. Stay safe.
Thank you all.
Thank you.